He said nothing while they laughed at him. He didn't flinch when they blamed him or when the judge gave the ruling. But when he made just one call, the entire courtroom shifted. What kind of man can flip a courtroom on its head without yelling, without threats, without even speaking above a whisper? If you're still thinking about that, good. You're right where this story starts. Let's rewind. He walked into that courtroom alone. Not just alone, dismissed, misjudged, and carrying a truth no one cared to understand. The courtroom door groaned as it opened, wood old and tired. The room quieted, not out of respect, just that kind of silence when people don't expect much. A few glanced up. Most didn't bother. Men like him, they'd seen too many. But he walked in, slow and calm. Not nervous, not broken, just solid, like he belonged there more than anyone else. His name? It wasn't the one in the papers. It was Curtis C.J. Rollins, 78. Back straight, boots cracked at the edges but clean. Shirt tucked in, sleeves rolled. A man who'd been through enough winters to stop pretending and enough storms to know how to walk through them. He held a flat cap in his hand, not just carrying it, cradling it, like something that meant more than fabric, like it had stories stitched into it. He made his way to the defense table, pulled out the chair quietly, and sat down like he had all the time in the world. And that's when the whispers started. Another trespasser. Homeless. Great. Why are we even wasting time? CJ didn't react. He'd heard worse. At train stations. Outside churches. On porches he'd built, but couldn't step back onto. He placed the cap on the table. Folded his hands. Looked straight ahead. Not at the judge. Not at the ceiling. Just forward. The file in front of the court called it illegal occupation of vacant public property. But what they saw as trespassing, he saw as going home. See, he hadn't barged into someone else's place. He'd sat for 45 minutes on the steps of a house he'd built with his own 2 hands back in '73. The same house where his wife used to hum lullabies to their baby girl. The one he'd painted every spring, until his knees stopped letting him climb ladders. The porch where he stood one last time before holding her hand as she slipped away. Sure, the city owned it now. On paper. But the ground still knew his name. And so did he. CJ didn't come with a lawyer. Not because he couldn't. Because he wouldn't. He wasn't going to let anyone else carry this for him. He wasn't there to plead. He was there to test if anyone in that building still had the guts to look a man in the eyes and call what he did a crime. No one in that courtroom knew who C.J. Rollins really was. Not yet. Judge Martin Evers was presiding. Gray hair, thick glasses, robes a little wrinkled. A man whose coffee was always cold by 9 a.m. because his interest in the job had died a long time ago. He shuffled the papers, flipping the file open with the same tired motion he'd used 1,000 times. Rollins Curtis, age 78, charged with unlawful presence on restricted city grounds. His tone didn't cut. It dragged, bored, detached, the kind of voice that makes a person feel invisible. Let me guess, the judge said, not even glancing up. No permanent home, no representation, no recent job, and no regard for the rules. CJ didn't blink. Over by the clerk's desk, Mia Nguyen paused her typing. Something in the judge's voice, maybe the dismissiveness, made her glance at the man seated alone at the table. She looked at him closely. There was something familiar. Maybe a memory. Maybe a city council meeting years ago. A man with rolled sleeves, explaining blueprints with steady hands and too much hope in his voice. She stared, shook her head. No, couldn't be him. But she kept staring. Judge Evers sighed. Mr. Rollins, I have 19 more cases today. Most of them just like you. People who think squatting equals ownership. Then finally, he looked up. His eyes met CJ's. But he didn't see a builder, or a war vet, or a father who lost his wife and daughter and still showed up every morning. He saw what he expected to see. An old black man, tired, alone, and, at least in his eyes, on the wrong side of the law. Let me be very clear, the judge said, leaning forward. The city owes you nothing. That's what Judge Evers said next. Flat, final. Memories don't mean ownership. The room stayed quiet, but not out of respect. It was that eerie kind of quiet that shows up when people think injustice is normal. No one raised their hand. No one stood up, except maybe C.J. Rollins. By the way, he didn't sink into the chair. His posture didn't scream, didn't cry. It refused, like his presence was its own protest. Behind the clerk's desk, Mia Nguyen stared at the case file again. Her voice barely audible. This isn't what they think it is. And he isn't who they think he is. Judge Evers coughed into his sleeve. Let's move this along. Mr. Rollins, you've got 2 minutes. Say what you need before I pass sentence. CJ didn't stand, didn't pull out a speech. He just looked straight at the judge and said, calm as morning. I'll speak when you're ready to hear me. The judge smirked, leaned back like he was flicking away a mosquito. Then he reached lazily for the gavel like it was just another day, another stamp on the system. But the air changed. Not loud, not sudden. It just tightened. That subtle tension before storm hits. That shift that makes people stop scrolling, stop breathing. Evers snapped, Mr. Rollins. Are you going to respond, or keep wasting time? CJ blinked once, then spoke. That same even tone like his words had roots. That house, that was mine. I didn't break in. I helped build this city. The judge laughed, sharp and sarcastic. Built the city, huh? You expect me to buy that? Across the aisle, Daniel Cortez, a local freelance reporter, 20-something, phone in hand, was already typing. Elderly trespasser claims he built the city. Courtroom chuckles. But something made him pause. Rewind. CJ's voice wasn't arrogant. It was tired and honest. I was drafting floor plans before I learned cursive, CJ said, eyes never leaving the judge. I raised walls to hold grieving families. I carved rooms that caught people's final breaths with dignity. His words weren't loud, but they landed. Like bricks, I designed places meant to heal people. And now, I sit here, surrounded by walls that only judge them. The courtroom didn't react loudly. It just stilled. Breath slowed. People looked up. Even Mia Nguyen stopped blinking, her mind racing back to a young architect at a public meeting. Rolled sleeves, blueprint underarm, hope in his voice. Daniel lowered his phone. Judge Evers tapped his pen too hard. So what? That's your excuse for breaking the law. CJ shook his head, eyes steady. No, sir. I'm saying the law forgot who helped lay its foundation. Silence. And then the gavel dropped. Loud, careless. 30 days in county. That's it. The sound echoed like a slammed door. CJ didn't react. He checked the watch on his wrist, a cracked old thing held together by faith and habit. Then looked up. May I make one call? Evers rolled his eyes. To who? Your poker buddies. CJ said nothing. By law, the court had to let him use the phone. A bailiff handed it over. He didn't ask how it worked. Didn't scroll. He just punched in 7 numbers, muscle memory guiding his fingers. Raised it to his ear. Spoke only 3 words. It's time now. And that was it. He handed the phone back, still calm, still steady. Then it started. Click, click, click. Heels on stone. Sharp, measured, not rushing, but impossible to ignore. The courtroom doors creaked open, not dramatically, but with authority that didn't need volume. She stepped in. No guard stopped her. No one asked for ID. She was dressed in a black suit. No patterns, no color, no frills. Carmen Rollins, CJ's daughter. She walked in like she belonged in every room she entered. Didn't speak, didn't explain, just placed one hand gently on her father's shoulder. A gesture that said more than 100 words ever could. Then, from her jacket, she pulled out a folder, simple leather, worn at the edges. She laid it open on the defense table. Inside, truth, real estate papers, city planning approvals, architect accreditations, letters of merit, newspaper clippings from 30 years back. All signed, stamped, sealed, proof. CJ Rollins hadn't trespassed. He had returned. Judge Evers' lips moved, but no sound came out. Until Carmen finally spoke. My father wasn't asking for charity. He wasn't begging. He just wanted to sit on the porch he built with his own hands. Her voice didn't waver. It peeled back every layer of doubt and indifference in that room. When the judge finally muttered, "Motion granted," it didn't sound noble. It sounded like surrender. There was no applause, no shouting, just one collective exhale, like the room had finally remembered how to breathe. CJ stood slowly, placed his old cap on his head, and turned to walk. Not like a man who'd won, like a man who had nothing left to prove. At the door, he paused, glanced back once, and said, "Start listening. Start seeing. No fire. No blame. Just a quiet order. Because sometimes justice doesn't slam the doors or wave flags. Sometimes it just walks out, boots cracked, shoulders straight, and dignity intact.